Good afternoon and welcome to the CCD 75 Parent Support Group. And tonight we are going to be talking about co-parenting without conflict. And navigating this journey of parenting can be really challenging when we're trying to find ways to support our children and manage our emotions when a lot of things can be overwhelming. So today we wanted to focus on levels of cooperation and communication and understanding. In this workshop, we'll take practical steps to create a more peaceful co-parenting dynamic. Tonight, we do have with us Dr. Judith Myers-Walls. She is a certified family life educator and has degrees in psychology and child development, along with some coursework in special education. She was a professor at Purdue University for 31 years, doing research and training professionals and educating students and the general public about parenting and family life. For 10 years since retirement from Purdue, she has worked part-time as the education director at Able to Adjust Inc. and onlineparentingprograms.com, creating and evaluating online curricula for court-involved families. Now, guys, we do have interpretation on this meeting in English, Spanish, and in Bangla. And with that being said, I'd like to give the floor over to our Spanish interpreter so that you may give your instructions.
Who would you like to go first?
Benito or Alex, whichever. It's okay.
Okay. The following message will be in Spanish. Si desea escuchar el audio en español, el número para la línea en español es 347-966-4114 y la clave de ingresar 692-987-102, símbolo numeral. Una vez más, ese número de teléfono es 347-966-4114 y la clave de ingresar 692-987-102, símbolo numeral. Gracias. This concludes the Spanish intro.
Bangla, you have the floor to give your instructions.
Thank you. The following message will be in Bangla. আজকে যারা এই মিটিংটি শুনছেন তারা যদি আপনাদের ফোন থেকে বাংলায় শুনতে চান সেক্ষেত্রে ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114। আমি বলছি 347-966-4114 এবং পিএলে দিতে হবে 296-747-624#। পিনটি হবে 296-747-624#। এটি মেসেজও দিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে। আপনাদের যদি কোনো বলার থাকে ফোন লাইনে বলতে পারেন, কিছু বলার না থাকলে অনুগ্রহ করে মিউট রাখবেন। থ্যাঙ্কস। বাংলা is done.
Mandarin, you now have the floor to give your instructions.
Language would be in Chinese Mandarin. 各位家长晚上好若需要国语翻译的，请打专线电话3779664114，密码呢是53202089，输入密码后请再按井字，进入后请大家按静音星6。如果有任何登录问题，请在聊天室留言。谢谢。Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you all for being here and for committing to making positive strides as you move into your parenting situations. So without further ado, let's jump into this. And Dr. Judith Myers-Walls, you now have the floor to start the presentation. Thank you again for being here with us tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that all of us are here together this evening. And let's see what we can do together and see what information we can share. As it was said, I'm working with Able to Adjust. The online presence that we have is with onlineparentingprograms.com. We work to help families facing challenges to build confidence and self-understanding, therefore helping them move forward toward a positive future. So, let me tell you what I have in mind for this evening. I'm hoping that what we can do is talk a little bit with some introductions. We've done some introductions already. And I hope to talk a little bit about parenting children with special needs and how that's related to stress. And then talk about 3 different kinds of quarrels or arguments. And then talk about anger and conflict, and especially about anger triggers. and then talk about some communication hints for co-parents. Those are parents who are trying to parent together. And then 3 categories of high conflict co-parenting relationships. Then we'll have some general some comments or questions about the content. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about how you could get more information beyond what I'm doing. I'll just be giving you some pieces from some of our classes. So we'll talk about how you could get more information and maybe sign up for some of our classes. And then there will be a chance for some questions about the sign up process and some of those technical ideas. If that sounds like what you're looking for, then that's what we'll do. If there are any particular concerns about that, let us know. Okay, so we could begin. So to begin with, I want to let you know that I'm taking information from 3 of our classes primarily. One is called Thrive. That class is for parents who need some foundational information on parenting. Those are parents who may be having some difficulties with parenting. And that class does include a lot of information specifically for parents who have special needs children. We also have a class called CARE, which stands for Co-Parenting and Revising Expectations. Those are for parents who are no longer parenting together, but they will be able to work things out pretty well on their own. And then we have a class called RISE, which stands for Resilience Inspired by Supportive Education. Those are for parents who may be struggling to come up with a parenting plan after they're no longer parenting together. They may need some extra help and they may be having some conflicts. So those are 3 classes that I'm pulling things from primarily. All of those classes are classes that I've created, so you can blame me if you're confused. I will try to be as clear as I can about what we're doing. I need to tell you that normally our classes are all online. They're what's called asynchronous, which means that the leader and the learner are not on at the same time. So you do it at your own speed. You can go quickly, you can go slowly, you can go back and repeat. So this is a little different. But this is something that I was used to doing a lot in the past, is working directly with people at the same time. So what we're doing is we're giving you a taste. Now, what we do in most of our classes is something called journal entries. At various points in the classes, we ask you to reflect about what you've just learned and to add some comments or some ideas about what you've learned or where you've come from. What I'm going to do instead is at times I will ask you to add some reflections or to think about some things. Now, to do that, what I'm going to do is ask you to add some comments or to give some reactions in the chat box. I don't know if you're familiar with using the chat box, but there's a place, I assume, where you can add a comment. And this would be something that might have worked better if we had had a poll, but we weren't working early enough to do a poll. So this is just a chance for you to think about an answer. And if you can't do that, or if you'd rather not do that, then you can just think about what your answer would be. So with that background, let me start with first talking about parenting children with special needs and parental conflict. Well, first of all, what we've found out from research is that parenting satisfaction is highest before you have children. In general, for all parents in all groups, parenting satisfaction goes down a little once you have kids. And that's partly because children's needs kind of get in the way. Well, not necessarily get in the way, but all of a sudden there's something else to pay attention to and not just each other. So it gets a little harder to just focus on how much you care about each other or what you're going to do together. So there's not as much time for us because all of a sudden it's a lot of we. There are lots of people involved. Now you add the fact that you've got children with special needs, Now you've got to find a lot of answers to a lot of questions. And what often happens when you've got these neurodivergent children, you may have parents who have some of the same issues. So you've got a lot of intense issues going on. You've got children who are challenging to deal with, and you're trying to find answers, and it makes life just a little more intense. And you may start to wonder, is it going to be like this in our lives forever? And are our children ever going to be able to be independent? And what is the life going to hold for us? So that all can add up, and it can lead to a lot of stress. And that can lead to a breakup. So when you think about your own situation, this is a chance to reflect. So when you think about what your life was like as a couple before your children were born, and I realize some of you may have never really been together much before your children were born. Others may have been together for a long time. You may have been together for a while. You may have had your children for a while before you realized that there were problems, but having a child with special needs, with neurodivergent needs, affected your relationship in a positive way? Has it brought you closer together? Or has it broken you up? Or has it had no effect? If possible, can you add some of your thoughts in the chat box? And I don't know if I'm going to be able to see the chat box. So if
I can manage the responses in the chat for you.
if others can see that, if you could just add, you could say broke up, closer, or no effect. We can start to see if what some of the
was
trends
hard at
are.
first, but made us stronger. It works now. Oh, that was something different. We are in denial, different points. That's what I see so far.
Okay, so there are some different things that you're dealing with. Some of you are not quite dealing with it at all. It sounds like some denial issues at different times. Okay,
I have
so
a few more, doctor. It definitely, let's see, it definitely affected my relationship in a negative way. Distance and a lot of disagreements. Still together, but it's hard. Made us stronger. With our first, it brought us closer. With our second, it made us withdrawn. It used to be too many thoughts, and I'm waiting on my children's mom to show up so I can go home and take part of the discussion. Okay. Understood.
okay, so there are a variety of issues going on. So you can see that it didn't, for most people, it didn't have no effect. It did have some kind of effect. Okay, well, let's go on to the next issue. It sounds like there were discussions in the family when you had a child with special needs. Well, let's talk about what those discussions, possibly arguments, were. Everyone has quarrels or arguments. If you live with someone, you're going to have disagreements. That's normal. It's okay. But let's look at what some of those different kinds of arguments might be. They're not all the same. Okay, this is just a couple having an argument or a discussion, although it looks like an argument. Let me talk about three different kinds of arguments. One would be nuisance quarrels. Another would be verbal debates. And another would be damaging quarrels or conflicts. Let me give you examples of those so that you understand what I'm talking about and ways to respond to them. Okay, a nuisance quarrel or argument just be annoying. And those are things where one person may be teasing, where you don't necessarily have to argue about it, but you are. So one example might be, why did you turn off the TV? I was watching the soccer game. Or someone might say, why did you say that to our kids again? Or when are we going to stop doing this? Or why don't you pick up this stuff that's lying on the floor? So one possible response to that statement might be, you know, I hate soccer, or you're just like your father. Or you could just turn the TV back on, or you could go to a different room. So it could become a quarrel, or you could avoid it from becoming a quarrel. It's something that really isn't getting to anything really important. It's just something that happens. When I think about children quarreling and think about nuisance quarrels, it's things like, he's looking out my window in the car. It's something that doesn't matter. If you just let it go, it'll go away, because children just do that. Well, married couples just do that too. There are things that are not important, and it could end up growing and getting bigger, but it doesn't have to. Just let it go. The second category is verbal debates. These are things where you are arguing a point, where you're trying to perhaps solve a problem, where something is going on that you need to talk about. And a verbal debate, hopefully, is talking about an issue, not about the person. So an example of that might be that the child wants to join the soccer team, and mom said yes, and dad said no. So now you have to make a decision. Is it a good thing for the child? Is it a bad thing for the child? One person thinks it's good, the other person thinks it's bad. So now you need to discuss it. So as long as you don't get personal, as long as you don't start making accusations, you will be able to discuss this and hopefully make a decision. So the answer to this, and a good way to deal with verbal debates, is you learn to debate well and you learn to be fair. You talk about the idea, you don't talk about the person. The third category is damaging conflicts. And this is where you might again start to say things like, well, if it's when you turn off the TV, when one person says, you touch that remote again and I'm going to make you eat it, that sounds pretty threatening. Or when you say that only an idiot would sit there and watch soccer, it's a terrible game, you start getting personal, you start accusing the other person of something, or you start threatening violence in some way. That is damaging. And the best way to respond to that, if you find yourself feeling like you're moving into that category, the best thing to do is to stop, just stop talking, take a deep breath, and start to think. What's happening when you are starting those arguments is you're moving into the lower part of the brain. You're using reflexes, you're using your emotions, and you're not thinking. You need to try to reset your system, get ready to think it through, and think about what you need to be talking about rather than responding with something you're going to regret later. So if the other person is threatening you, you need to figure out, at what point do I need to get out of here to be safe? So damaging quarrels obviously need to end. You're not going to solve anything by yelling at each other, by threatening each other, by hurting each other. So those three categories are really important to recognize the difference. It's okay to have these little nuisance or annoying arguments now and then, but you don't want them to grow into something bigger. You obviously need to have verbal debates now and then because you need to make decisions. You need to talk. You need to talk about things now and then. You need to make decisions. But then the damaging quarrels, you need to recognize when it's becoming damaging and how someone could get hurt, and you need to get out of those. So recognize them, figure out when the damage is starting and get out of there or stop it before you hurt someone else. Okay, so thinking about that, it's again time for a reflection. Think about a recent argument you've had with your co-parent. Do you think it was just annoying? Do you think it was a verbal debate? Or do you think it was damaging? I don't want details. Let's not get too personal here, but what do you think? Can you categorize a recent argument?
So far, we're getting damaging, verbal debate, verbal abuse. So I removed myself out of the situation. Damaging and verbal debates and verbal abuse so far is what we have.
Okay, so you've got some serious things going on. And I hope no one got seriously hurt. Hopefully we can talk about some situations, some things that might be helpful. No one's talking about the annoying. I wonder how many of the arguments started with annoying. Try to catch that, because some of those may have just been annoying quarrels and they could be caught before they become those others. Okay, now what I'm going to try to do is talk about anger. And in order to do that, I would like to go to a video. So let's see how successful I will be at switching what I am showing on the screen. Oops, it switched on me. I was showing the right thing. I was wanting to show another video.
Yeah, go back out of that one. All right.
Things are overlapping on my screen. So I need, yeah,
Where did you normally save it? Would it be at the bottom of your screen?
It would be at the top, and everything is on top of each other here.
I did just see the anger video pop up and then you lost it. So I know what you mean.
So
do you want to click the file menu over to the far left by the picture to see if that expands anything else for you? Top far left.
Let's see.
All the way to the back arrow above it. Those files, see if that expands you.
If I go to
the middle button, it's above the refresh button.
Above the refresh button.
It's your picture icon, refresh, the little expanding picture to the left. Like above YouTube, where it says Outlook YouTube, very, very top, far left.
Far left.
Yeah, over there. Does that expand it and give you?
Nope, it's not expanding anything. I'm sorry. It's not coming up. Let's see, what's the best way for me to get to this? I don't need this.
So then go back to your PowerPoint at the bottom and then see if it'll let you go back to your embedded link.
Well, yeah, I have one, but this is not actually embedded. It will not take me to it. So it's I have to open it from here. If I could get, it's just beyond where all these things are. So well, I'm afraid I will not be able to show that, but let me just talk a little bit about, I will stop sharing for a moment, and let me just talk a little bit about anger. Anger is one of the basic emotions that all of us have. We all have anger. It is something that we can't control easily because it is at the base of the brain. What I want you to do is imagine a spray bottle. We all use spray bottles, and spray bottles have a trigger. That trigger, when you pull it, will spray something out of it. And often that spray is something unpleasant. Now, if there's just water in it, that's one thing, but often it is some kind of cleaning product or something that will spray at other people. And we don't want to spray that in people's faces, but when you are angry and someone pulls your trigger, you're going to spray that at someone. Now, spray bottles often have a way for you to turn off the sprayer. What happens with anger is that there's often a trigger that will set off your anger. Now, that anger might be something that everyone can see. Everyone sees why you're angry. They can see that there's a reason for you to be angry. Other times, it might be something from your childhood, something that happened yesterday, something that has built up all day long, but something may have set you off. Do you know what your anger triggers are? Is it something that your co-parent said today? Is it something that happened with your car on your way to work? Is it something about the weather? Is it something about what happened with your child at school yesterday? Did you get very little sleep last night? Something may have set you off so that some little thing is pulling your trigger. And that means everyone else is suffering from your anger spraying out. It's important to recognize what your triggers are, because that can put you in a situation where everyone is dealing with your anger. Do you know what your triggers are? And do you know what your co-parents' triggers are? Do you pull your co-parents' triggers on purpose? Do you pull them accidentally? Is there a way to control those? Sometimes just your co-parent's voice will set off your triggers. Sometimes it is a particular issue that you need to deal with. Be aware of what some of those triggers are, because if you can learn to control those and not set off other people's triggers, that will help you move your whole situation from the lower part of the brain to the upper part of the brain, and allow you to then think things through. The upper part of the brain deals with thought, with planning, with controlling your emotions. The immediate emotions are in the lower part of the brain. And that's good when you need an immediate reaction, when you need to respond right away. But most of the time, it really is much more helpful to think things through. That's why the stop, breathe, and think is very helpful. Because you stop what you're doing, you take a deep breath, and then think things through. You can plan something out, and you can plan something that will be much more helpful in the long run. So, triggers are things that can happen without planning. And that's why it's helpful to begin to identify your triggers. So I would like to go back to my screen sharing. and have you think again about think again about what it is that that might be a trigger for you and for your co-parent, and how you might be able to control that. Okay. I'm very large screen. You do. So, do you have anger triggers? And maybe you need to ask someone who lives with you, because they may know better than you do whether you have anger triggers. They may have noticed that. And does your co-parent have anger triggers? And do you avoid them? Or do you pull them, maybe sometimes on purpose? And think about this question and take notes for yourself. You don't need to post these. And I need to figure out how to get back in the presentation mode.
If you click slideshow, Judy, up at the top on your PowerPoint, there's like a
slideshow.
Click on slideshow.
Slideshow. Where is it? Where is it?
Click off of that.
Slideshow right
Yeah,
there.
slideshow, and then from current slide.
From current slide. Yes.
Keep going over to the left more.
To the left. From current slide, right? Okay, it just clicked off me. Okay, stop doing that. No, nope. I'll go back to my PowerPoint. No, I don't want to.
Yep, and then just click cancel on the setup show, or just X out of it. You're gonna just X out of where it says setup show in the middle of the screen. Yep, click that little X.
Okay. Oh, this here, right here. Okay, get rid of that. Okay, now from current slide. Okay. Slideshow.
Okay, so you have to just click cancel.
Cancel where?
Do you see it's in the middle of the screen, kind of towards the bottom, right beside the picture of the girl? Cancel. Yep, go over to yep, keep going down, keep going down.
Oh, down there. I see it.
Yes.
Boy, I
Yep.
didn't see that. I
And
didn't see
then-
the dialog box. Okay, now do it. There we go. Now I got it.
Perfect.
Thank you for helping walk me through that.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Sorry for this.
No apologies needed. No apologies needed.
Okay, now we'll go on. Now we're going to talk about communication content and methods. I'm sorry, I realize we're just going through things in kind of a superficial way, but hopefully this is giving you some ideas. Okay, now let's talk about what goes on with communication. Okay, communication is related to everything else we've been talking about, obviously. But there are some things that are helpful to think about more directly. Okay, whenever we talk to each other, there may be some other types, but in general, there are 4 different kinds of things that we're talking about. We're either talking about information. That means we're talking about facts. We're talking about something that did or will happen. Or we're talking about feelings. That might be how you're feeling, positive or negative. Or you're talking about solving a problem of some kind. So this might be clarifying what the problem is. It might be discussion of what some of the possible solutions are, or deciding which solution you're going to choose. Or you're giving a command of some kind. Now, it might be a soft command. That might be something like, would you like to? Or it might be good if you, or would you please? Or it might be a hard command. Stop doing that right now. Or I need you to, something that is a hard command. Now, after a breakup, or in a conflicted relationship of some kind, the recommendation is to use only information and problem solving and leave out the feelings and the commands when you're talking with the person that you are no longer in a committed relationship with. It's not saying that you should never use those other two. You're going to need those in other ways. But after a divorce or breakup, those other two kinds of communication can get you in trouble. If you're no longer connected, you're no longer responsible for taking care of each other. So you really don't need to share your feelings. You really don't need to tell each other what to do. And those things can lead to damaging quarrels of some kind. So let's look at a couple of sample interactions and see if you can figure out what kind of information or what kind of communication they're having. Now, this is what happens when you go to AI and you ask them to set up an interaction. And if you don't tell them what kind of feelings or what kind of emotions to include, everybody's smiling. So everybody's smiling in this picture. But what content do you think they're communicating? Share the content, the category that you think fits in the chat box. Do you think they're sharing information, feelings, problem solving, or commands?
We have one feelings in the chat.
Okay.
Problem solving, affections.
Okay. Well, what I told AI
And
was,
we have information that came in and a few more informations and feelings.
okay, so there's lots of stuff that you're thinking. I have a feeling it's difficult whenever you're having a face-to-face meeting not to communicate feelings. But, and especially when you don't tell AI and they just make everybody smiling. It does look very friendly. What I told AI was to have a couple that was discussing when to allow a child to have a cell phone. So they've got a cell phone in the picture. Do you think that would be a happy, caring conversation? Maybe. If you are no longer with your co-parent and you have that conversation, it probably will end up being more of a verbal debate. And it may not, there may be some information sharing. You may have read some things. The other person may have read some things, so they may want to share some information. And then they will do some problem solving. Okay. It's hard to tell from a picture, isn't it? How about this picture? What do you think? What kind of communication do you think they're having?
Someone said this could be sarcastic. I'm waiting for others to speak. Debate, uneasy conversation.
This one looks a little more uneasy, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, what I told them this time was that they were discussing a problem the child had at school. And so they do look more worried, don't they? Now, with both of these, it would be interesting to think about whether it's good to have the child there or not. I would say in both of those discussions, you probably want to have the discussion before the child is there. Make up your decision, make some decisions, and then bring the child in. With the problems at school, you might want to bring the child in first and say, tell us what your side is and what happened, and then we'll discuss what the outcome will be. The big thing about the child being there is that you definitely want to avoid having a damaging quarrel in front of the child. You definitely want to avoid having any kind of damaging relationship, any kind of fights in front of the children. That has been shown by research to be very hard on the children and may have long-term effects on the children. So that's the most important thing to avoid is obviously you don't want to have fights for your own sake as well, but especially not in front of the children. So that somewhat leads to the next slide, which is methods of communication. Now, I just threw some methods in here. Some possible ways that you can communicate with your co-parent, especially if you're not living with each other anymore, would be by phone, text, voicemail, email, face-to-face, a message sent through the child, or a paper letter. What else can you think of?
Someone said court order.
Well, a court order is probably not going to help you communicate. Well, that may tell you that you need to communicate, but you could communicate in court, I guess. But hopefully you don't need to communicate everything in court. Does anyone use an app? Has anyone heard of Our Family Wizard? That's one kind of app.
WhatsApp is in the comment section. Someone uses WhatsApp.
Okay, that would be a kind of communication through the phone. Another would be to send a message to another person. Well, another thing I will say is it's definitely not recommended that you send a message through the child. That puts the child in the middle. So
I do have one person, not to interrupt you, in the chat that says my ex does not allow for one-to-one communication. They don't allow for conversations where the children are not present.
Okay. So, and that I can understand that. And depending on what your situation is, they may say that the child may not be present or that the child does need to be present. So yeah, it depends on what the situation is. Let me go to the next, let me add some things. One thing to consider for how you want to do your communication is, are there triggers? And if you're going to have triggers from being face-to-face, you might want to avoid face-to-face and use voicemail, use text, use an app, use something that avoids being face-to-face, because that may start a fight. If you can't talk to each other and stay civil, then don't talk to each other directly. And so that idea of going through court or going through your lawyer or going through another person, that may avoid those fights that would come up if you were trying to meet face-to-face. Another option would be to, another issue is to think about safety issues. Is it not safe for you to talk face-to-face or to talk someplace where you would not be safe or the child wouldn't be safe? Another question is, do you want to does your communication need to have a record? If you talk face to face or on the phone, you won't have a record unless you can take notes, but then the question is, was that an accurate record or not? If you do text, if you do email, if you do some of these apps, you will have a record of what I said, what the other person said, and then how we responded to each other. And that might be helpful if you need to go back to court. So keep in mind what kinds of things that you might need to keep track of. In general, never involve the child. Don't put the child in the middle. Don't say, tell your dad to, or tell your mom to. Don't do that, especially some of these children who have the neurodivergent kinds of issues. That is not fair to the child, and that is not necessarily going to be accurate either. Also, when you do meet, if you don't meet regularly, you're going to have a meeting, try to set up meetings for just one issue and stay on that issue. Don't let it drift into other issues. Agree to say, okay, we're going to meet and we're going to talk about what we're going to do about Thanksgiving. And you talk only about that. And if it starts to drift into something else, then you say, we need to set up another meeting if we're going to talk about that, so that you don't start other arguments. So it's one issue for each meeting. And then also try to stick with information and problem solving, and not get into feelings and not get into commands and telling each other what to do. Okay, is that clear?
We have a feedback in the chat that was speaking about with text messages. She explicitly tells me what she's thinking of me, and they're hoping that mediation, which she keeps rejecting because it will lead to having her change the modus operandi. So I'm assuming that the communication via text doesn't work. And a few people in the chat are saying a therapist is a great mediator.
Yeah, that a therapist can work. Having a mediator can really be helpful in many of these cases. Someone who can listen to both sides and help you hear each other when you can't hear each other when you talk directly. So looking at those ways of communication, is there a new communication idea that you want to try? Try to take a note or make a note of something that you do want to try. Put that note somewhere that you'll see it, on your phone or somewhere else, and decide when you want to start trying that new idea, and tell someone that you're going to start it. That's true for any goal that you have. Tell someone that you've got a goal so that you can be held responsible for that goal. Okay. Now there's one more major issue I wanted to talk about, and then we'll go on to some talking about how to get more information. Okay, there are 3 different kinds of high conflict relationships that I have identified when I've looked through the literature. And well, first of all, I'll talk about high conflict relationships. Those are relationships that in which you can't reach an agreement within 2 years. It's not quite that clean and neat, but that's probably the most common kind of definition of high conflict relationships. And or couples need a lot of help to agree on anything, or couples that really do have a very dangerous relationship with each other. So one kind of high conflict relationship are those people who have conflicts of interest. That means that they disagree about money, parenting time, or other concrete things. In those cases, you might be able to find a compromise or a middle ground. So the skills that you need to learn are negotiation, or making and responding to proposals. So that's the idea that you can't figure out how much time one parent's supposed to have or the other parent's supposed to have, and how to work out the money issues or the how you're going to share the child and the stuff. And if you can't work that out, those are the kinds of things that you might be able to give a little and take a little, so that you can maybe have again a compromise or a middle ground. That's where negotiation can be helpful. And as I said, a mediator can be very helpful for that. The second kind of conflict would be a conflict of beliefs or values. Those are conflicts, and as you can see here, it's where you just really, you believe different things. Now, sometimes that might be that you don't believe the other parent can be a good parent. That's not the same as believing that the other parent is abusing the child. That's a different issue, and we'll talk about that in the next category. But here, this is where you just, I believe in this kind of parenting and you believe in that kind of parenting, and I'm just not willing to give, and you're not willing to give. And so you end up just not trusting each other. And the trust may also be related to your personal relationship as a couple as well. So it's a trust kind of issue, and that's not something that you can give a little on. You just don't have a way to come together. So in this case, the skills that you need to learn are, you need to learn, first of all, I cannot control the other parent. I can control myself. I can't control the other parent. So I need to learn to let go of what the other parent does and just take care of me. I need to be a good parent, as good a parent as I can be when I have the children, and recognize that when the other parent has the children, he or she is going to do what they're going to do. And as long as it isn't abusive, I can't do anything about that. And I just need to let go. And you may need to consider parallel parenting. If you're not familiar with parallel parenting, basically what it means, the goal is to minimize the amount of contact that the parents have with each other. Because they don't trust each other, because they can't work together, the idea is that everything is set up so that they have very little contact with each other. The kids are passed back and forth with as little contact as possible, and the responsibilities for parenting are divided so that they don't need to discuss them. So one parent takes care of education, perhaps, and the other parent takes care of health and maybe religious upbringing. Or in some cases, one parent takes care of all major decisions, and then both parents take care of only the day-to-day decisions when they have the children. In any case, they just basically live their own parenting lives when they have the children, and they don't talk to each other at all. The interesting thing about that is that separation might be the best route to future peaceful interactions. You're not going to have peaceful interactions by continuing to come together and fight. But if you separate as much as possible for now, you might be able to cool down and get past whatever all these conflicts are for now. And eventually, maybe you'll be able to, by the time the kids get married, who knows? At some point, you may be able to communicate civilly. So that's the idea behind parallel parenting. Then the third category for the types of abuse, or the types of high conflict parenting, is abusive conflicts. In these cases, one or both parents are hurting each other and maybe the children, physically or emotionally. So there's usually a mismatch of power. One parent has a lot more power than the other and tries to control everything that the other parent does. And the skills to learn there for the person who has less power, that person needs to find safety. And the person who has been more responsible for abusing needs to learn better ways to feel in control. We all need to feel control some places in our lives, and it's okay to feel like you need control, but you do not need to, you need to find alternatives that will not hurt other people. So that's the goal there. So what skills would you like to build? Would you like to learn better communication, better negotiation, parallel parenting, or safety? What do you think would be helpful in your life?
I want to check in. Do we have any answers on the Bangla, Spanish, or Mandarin line?
Good. I'm glad you're checking on that.
No comments in the Spanish line.
Thank you.
No comments in Bengali line.
Thank
No
you.
from Mandarin either.
Thank you. In the chat, doctor, we have that's the breaking point of removing myself and the safety for the sake of my children. And then we have better communication as a reflection of what they would like to work on.
Okay. Okay. Well, there are lots more ideas in our classes. Our classes are generally from 4 hours to 12 hours long. So there's a lot more involved. This is just a taste of what's available. My colleague can say a lot more about how you could get enrolled or involved in our classes if people are interested in that.
I do see in the chat, peace of mind is extremely important. No need to share anything with the other being if they haven't been involved from the get-go. And then we do have another question that says, how much for the classes?
Okay, that's perfect transition into the next part and allowing Michelle to move in. And
Hi, I'm Michelle Muncy, and I've actually been with Able to Adjust and online parenting programs for about 10 years now. And I'll go into a little bit if about our program. The interesting thing about New York specifically, and I'm assuming here we're dealing with everybody here that's on the call is from New York. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe
Okay,
so. If
perfect.
anyone is
All
not,
right.
forgive me.
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yes,
that's
I'm
great.
from New York.
There's a big domestic violence advocacy group, and they've got quite a large pull in the state of New York. And we worked for several years to kind of work with their existing programs in the family courts to get our program as an acceptable resource. And really what Dr. Myers-Walls has done is she has kind of adapted our program a little bit for the state of New York. So it is an unusual program. And it's still one of those programs that in general that is being mandated or ordered by the court. That doesn't mean that you couldn't go in and look at our other classes and see what we have to offer and take our classes. They do not have to be mandated. We do take on the cost of low income and indigent. And so anybody that's on any type of government aid or have had their filing fees waived, we take on the cost. And we've got a whole laundry list of classes. So to start off with, is it okay, Christy, if I just kind of go through our classes, or do we want to follow up with any questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And yeah, and anybody is welcome to answer. We work all across the country. And I can tell you when we originally started, we were kind of like the swine flu of online classes because they are of parenting classes, because so many individuals thought you cannot do this online. And I think it took a while to get Judy to even see the value and how this can be done, and how can you offer a high conflict class online, and is it effective? And we've done some research, and Judy, I don't know, did you go through any of the research behind the programs and kind of what we identified with these classes, and are they actually effective? Can you speak to that at all?
I did not do that here, but we have found that it does make a difference. It makes a difference for people who are willing to put an effort into these classes. If it works for you, if you want to do an online class, you're willing to set your own objectives, you're willing to commit to it, it will make a difference for you. If you really like to sit in a classroom with other people and get to know them and share your stories and listen to their stories, you probably want to have a face-to-face class. But if you want the flexibility and the privacy of an online class, they work well.
And do the hours seem to matter? And what does the research show there?
The hours do not seem to matter a lot. The big difference with the hours would be how much information is included. You can't fit everything in shorter classes. The longer the class, the more different information you're going to get. The longer the classes are, the more likely you are to get broader information and more information about things, the more expanded topics like step families and some of the more detailed information about dealing with conflict.
And relationships. That was
And
a big
relationships,
issue.
yeah.
And relationships, yeah. So we do offer quite a few classes. Judy's done quite a bit of research over the years on these classes to just validate the effectiveness. I think since post-COVID, more and more courts, counties, agencies are getting a lot more comfortable with online as an option. And the way that they're doing it, and is everybody's just kind of jumping on board on the online bandwagon. And there really is evidence to show how these programs should be structured for the best outcome. One of the things that Judy did research, and it's not very like groundbreaking or anything, but and I do know she touched on it. If you come into these classes with a positive outcome, with a positive attitude, the outcomes are higher. So those that are kind of being forced to go into it, especially in a high conflict situation, and they're negative, they tend to stay negative throughout. If we can get them comfortable, and that's one of the things, that's kind of one of our jobs, is because this is still new, and even though it's been around a while, people really want to feel comfortable and they want to know that they're in the right place. So we really make an effort to have extended customer support, and we've got Spanish speakers, because what we want to do is we want you to feel comfortable going into this and take away the stigma of being told to do it or forced to do it or mandated to do it, whatever the reason is, and just to come in and be calm and be in a place where you're accepting and ready to learn. And that's really when the outcomes are the best. And so, like I said, one of the things we really do is make sure that we've got extended customer service to help everybody out. But that does help the outcome. And I do know that probably, since most of you are sitting in on this call, you're going to be learners. And so you're going to get something out of these programs. A lot of what's come out, and this is our online parenting programs website, and what Judy's been talking a lot about is our co-parenting and our high conflict co-parenting. And again, the thing that's unique about New York is that they have a program that they've approved for the family courts at the state level. But we've supported their existing program. So we highly recommend, if you're going to do a high conflict co-parenting class, you find yourself stuck with your co-parent, you just cannot get them to see you say one thing, they're saying another, then our high conflict co-parenting class is really gonna help. And Judy, what I call, she wrote kind of our post-COVID, we call it, our post-COVID high conflict class, which is a lot more inclusive about the different types of conflicts that she talked about today. So it really helps to get you unstuck in what your conflict style is past that, in order for you to start to grow and try to figure out your co-parenting relationship for the sake of the kiddos. Is there anything you want to say there, Judy? You want to step in at all? No?
Well, I could say lots of things, but I don't know that I need to say lots of things at this point.
Okay.
There's a question about what the cost is for the classes.
Okay, so it really depends on what class. The one that's for the state of New York is at $95. The co-parenting class starts at $29, and then they go all the way up to $149 for the 12-hour class. And again, anybody that qualifies for low income or indigent can go down to get the financial verification form, and they can fill this out, and then we would qualify them. Our customer service team, I think Allie, who's sitting in on the call, she sent an onboarding video, and in there they talk about they love to process these forms, and so they'll get back to you right away. And if anybody that's on this call would like to review any of the classes or take any of the classes, please reach out. Chrissy, I don't know if you've given any of our email addresses, and I'm happy to give you guys a free code so that you can take any one of these classes at no cost. So if anybody would like to go through any of our classes, you're more than welcome to. Just reach out, let us know, and we'll set you up with a free code. So that you can actually go through and experience these classes. What's come out of this too is Judy talked a little bit about the Parenting Skills Thrive class, which is for a little bit higher risk parenting situations. So we also, in addition to the co-parenting, we've got the Parenting Skills Thrive class, which is a really, really good, solid class. And if you're just struggling with that co-parent, if you feel like there might be safety issues or safety concerns in the home, we have some additional modules there. So we have several different classes. We've got wonderful classes for children. Jesse Boring, and actually he's in New York, wrote our COD class, which is Children of Divorce Coping with Divorce. And he kind of goes in and relates to the children where they were at. And that's a research-based, evidence-based program that he wrote specifically for kiddos going through separation or divorce. But lots of information. The classes, as they say, they start at $19.99 and they go all the way up to, we've got they go all the way up to $359, but lots of information here. Does anybody have any questions? I'm happy to go in and kind of show you what these classes look like and how they are designed. I was talking a little bit with Judy before the class about how she structured the program, and they're designed to be, Judy, so you read it, how do you say this? You read it,
Well, I try to give you, I try to give you some, I try to get you interested to think about what your needs are, get you interested in the topic, think about what you already know, and then teach you some information about it, and then get you to think about how you will begin to apply it and how to actually make it your own. So it's multiple steps of recognizing what the issues are, and then figuring out and building on what you already know. So it's not just throwing information at you, but also getting at the application and how to make it your own.
Great. So would you like me to go in, Christy, and kind of show you what some of these classes are and how they're structured?
I think that would be a good, important thing to do. We're also going to have this video. We're live streaming it on YouTube, so we make sure that our parents who registered or those who were not able to come, that they're able to play this back and have the information. So I do think that that would be an important piece to track through.
Okay, perfect. Now, does anybody have any questions? I apologize. I'm adding a class here onto my account. Does anybody have any questions about our program in general? We did start, just so you know, in 2011, and we have done about almost 300,000 classes across the country. So we are, okay, sorry about this, guys. I should have
Lucas,
made
I
sure.
do have one while we have a quick break.
Sure.
One parent did ask, is the PowerPoint available to all who attended?
Well, it will be, if it's going to be recorded, it will be available that way, but I'd be happy to make it available in other ways if you would like.
Okay, thank you so much. And then another parent asked, are there in-person classes?
So our whole model that we started, we actually started with the sole intent of being online. And so we do not currently offer any in-person providers. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to offer the best, most ethical, evidence-based programming we can online, because resources are just dwindling as far as in-person providers are going across the country. And so we are doing our level best to try to reach out and provide the best education we can, knowing that there's just a lack of resources out there.
And I can also say, after doing parenting education for 31 years, people struggled always with getting people to come to programs, get very small groups, and it was hard to, well, I can say some of the programs that I did for people in prison, there you'd get groups, but beyond that, it was hard to get people to come. And when it's on your own time and you set it all up, that's when when you don't have that problem.
We actually do offer twice a month a Zoom from Dr. Janella Street, who does co-parenting classes, both just co-parenting and high conflict co-parenting, that we partnered with. And I will tell you, in about 8 months, we've had 2 signups. So people very much prefer to sign up, take the class from their phone, their computer, or their tablet, and complete the class based on their schedule. And really what happens is you come into one of our programs and you're going to see it, your class will be right here under your account. And this is the high conflict co-parenting class that Judy has been talking about. The nice thing about this is Judy designed this to be at between 4th to 6th grade reading level. And one of the things that we were concerned about is, would it be developed in a manner that would be offensive to people that were highly educated? And that has not come back. So we are, go ahead, Judy.
I can say I've been writing at this reading level for a long time. I did that when I was working with teenage parents, and I was afraid of the same thing. And I would find that was never an issue, that people who were more comfortable with reading enjoyed it because it was clear and they could read it quickly. And I think what it does is it challenges me to make sure that I am writing clearly and making it very understandable.
We do have a couple of comments in the comment section. One says, does this organization mostly cover parents of young children, or is it all across the board, parents of children and young adults?
We have gone from infancy to young adults.
Okay, and next it says, if any parents here would like to do the high conflict co-parenting classes together, please hit me up. What was said earlier was helpful to meet face-to-face with others who can relate.
Perfect. And
So if
yeah,
we do have any parents that want to possibly meet in person, the council can work something together to make a space for you guys to support each other. In addition to making sure that adapt for life. Am I saying this wrong, Lord? Adapt to able to adjust. I'm just making up people's names here. Able to adjust, and online parenting can fill in some blanks for you as well. We're going to make sure that they have the email addresses of everyone who was curious and concerned about taking the class, so that they can stay in touch with you and make sure to offer you anything that think you may miss or need. With that being said, I give the floor back over to you, Doc.
Great. Judy, did you want to say anything?
No,
No?
I'm okay.
So one of the nice things is it's really scary when you're going into these classes. A lot of times it's the individual's first time in doing an online class. So it's really scary. And the fact that we have a final really trips people up and they get panicked right away. And what we try to do is we say, we're here to help you. We're not trying to fail you as a parent. That is not our goal, right? You're in these classes. We want to make you feel like you're successful, that you're accomplishing something. We do get questions quite a bit like, what is my specific situation? Mine is a unique situation. And so what we've tried to do is make the scenarios generalized in nature so that it's not, that specific to any one issue, but that a lot of people can understand it. One of the interesting things about our program that we also did as well is that we allow parents to identify their co-parenting relationship. So if you're going into this and you were married or you were single but lived with that other person, or that you were never married, or those that identify as something other than a non-conventional relationship. And then you will receive the class based on how you identify your co-parent relationship. So that's kind of something that's unique to our program. And you can see everything on my right side is green. For parents, it's going to be grayed out. And a lot of times it's not a lot. We used to get this question more. A timer will start and it'll start counting down. So this 1 minute welcome page will start counting down to 59, and then somebody panics and they're, oh my gosh, I can't finish in that amount of time. What do I do? Actually, that timer is just a baseline to hold you accountable. So you could spend 20 minutes on that page. It's just something to hold the user there. One of the things that we do ask throughout the New York class, which you're not seeing here, is if you feel like you're a victim of domestic violence, then click here. And the state does actually not want you taking the class for safety reasons. So you'll get pushed out of the class. So they're really cautious about that. But outside of that, with our normal standard classes, this would be how the program would function. You would come in, then you would see the information on the right-hand side. If you're doing this on your phone, in the upper left corner, there's 3 white lines that are pretty intuitive to a mobile device, and you can click on those, and that will be where your navigation is to log in. And then you can begin taking the class. And as Judy had mentioned, you go through the programs and they're broken up differently. She talks about, what you're going to learn before the unit, what did you learn at the end of the unit, and then the information within. We get a question, what is this class? Is it videos? Is it, how does it work? Well, really each page is different. So you might have reading and some videos on one page. You might have some journal entry questions on a page. It really is contingent. And what it does is it allows the user to interact with the program. So it's not a program where you can just press a button and listen to it while you're doing laundry. You actually have to engage in the program, and the outcomes will be, has shown to be much higher. Does anybody have any questions about the structure of the program? Okay. As you're journaling, one of the really cool things about this program is it collects all of your journal answers. And at the end, it prints out a nice PDF. So as you're journaling through here, you can always go back and print out your journal entry from your account. And those will be in a nice, concise, pretty format for you. I'll pull that up real quick. Mine, you can see your activity journals are right here. I'm not going to have anything entered, but I just downloaded my activity journal, and it's going to look like a pretty picture. I don't have anything in here, but it'll be multiple pages long as you're going through the class. So that's a nice feature of our program. And then at the end, after each of the units, there is kind of a little pop quiz. And then at the end, you have a final exam. There shouldn't be anything stopping you from progressing through the class. except there's just barriers from you just being able to click start and then click finish. And so after you do that, then you'll get your survey and final exam. And then at that point, you'll be able to access the information at any time upon completion. So we do have a 30-day expiration on the class to encourage parents to kind of get through and finish the class. But once you finish, it's open up and you can use this as a reference tool for as long as you need. We don't close this class. So that's basically how our program is structured. Does anybody have any questions about the class, how it's structured? Can I go through anything in additional detail? We do offer it in English and Spanish. And go ahead.
Let me explain a little bit about it. There is a pre-test and a post-test in each unit. The pre-test, we don't expect you to know the answers. But what it does is it kind of tells you, what should I watch for in this unit? Because there will be a post-test with the same questions. So it alerts you to what the important information is in this unit. And some of the items are not right and wrong answers. Some of them are just your attitudes. And what that does is it shows us how you might have changed during taking that unit. And then the overall questions, the final exam, what that does is tell us what you've learned. It's for us to see how effective we've been and for you to see how effective what you've learned. And then what that does is allow you to get a certificate at the end in case you need to show the court or someone that, yes, you took the class and you passed it. But you can retake it as many times as you need to get the minimum 75% score for the final exam in order to get the certificate.
Yeah, and all the pages have audio, so you can listen to the page if you'd like to.
Path practice.
And then they also have Spanish
What was
audio.
that question?
Oh, it was just audio. I was just talking about the audio.
Okay, gotcha.
maybe.
I thought I heard a question in the background.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then we've got the Spanish, which again, we've got the Spanish voiceovers and for the videos and stuff. And so, yeah, I know that everybody's busy and I know that we're probably about ready to wrap it up. Does anybody have any additional questions?
I want to check in with the interpretation line, Spanish, Mandarin, Bangla. Do we have any questions from any participants on that end?
No question in Bangla line.
No question in Spanish line.
Thank
No
you.
question from Mandarin line.
All right, well, with that being said, I'd like to thank Dr. Judith Meyer-Walls. Thank you, Michelle Muncie. Wasn't there another young lady here? Was it Allie? I thought she was here at one point, but thank you to everyone from your organization who's been here to help our parents out and give them supports as they're moving through their co-parenting situations. We also have a thank you for organizing this for the session. Oh, you're more than welcome. It's definitely needed in our society. We want to make sure that our parents, you guys stay supported. And if there's any additional ideas that you would like to see or resources that you would like to have in our support groups, please do remember to let the council know at d75council@schools.nyc.gov. If you need any other assistance on any other levels, let us know. As said, we will make sure that your emails are given over to Dr. Clark and Michelle Muncie and Allie Clark so that we can make sure you have what you need and that they can keep in touch with you. For the parents who are putting your emails in the chat, we will make sure that they have access to that for you as well. I do see here in the chat, I'm not a co-parent, but I'm learning how to not become one. Thanks for this. That's amazing, Quentin. Thank you so much. These are the tools and the things that we need to lean into. So grateful for that. With that being said, guys, this is going to be on our CCD 75 outreach page on YouTube. Don't forget, we do have our calendar meeting on November 20th 6 p.m. You can log on to that with ccd75.org. I'll also make sure to send that out because I know a lot of you do have feedback in other areas, and our superintendent will be present. So you'll have another platform to voice some of the things that are going on in your lives. And with that, we want to go ahead and give you your time back and thank you again for coming. We're going to go ahead and release the interpreters at 7:27 p.m. And look online, guys, CCD75, YouTube, Outreach. It will be there. It is also on our Facebook page. Again, thank you for joining and have an amazing night.
Sorry for the technical problems. Thanks for being
Oh,
here.
never say
Thanks.
sorry. You did an amazing job, Dr. Myers-Wiles. We always thank you, and you always can come back at any time to keep presenting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.